And I want to start out first by saying, in the in the doctor community, where they diagnose ADHD, they don't typically diagnose until around 5 years of age, which is what Jude is now. And part of the reason for that is because it's not a visible disorder, that sometimes you have to wait and see the learning disabilities, or the
developmental delays,
right, the delays
for education,
in education, to really see when the ADHD is exhibiting itself.
And along with that, you can be evaluated at any number of different sort of facilities, but typically the most accurate way to get an analysis, a true evaluation, is they want to have input from the parent, the doctor, and a teacher. So the teacher is obviously a third party, and if you don't have someone that's already in school and that you have access to that third party, they many times feel like these children are misdiagnosed because they're going on the sole recommendation of only one of those categories, and so,
or at the most two.
Right, and so you're trying to see the child from many different perspectives to make sure that the diagnosis is as accurate as possible.
Right. So, we have known, obviously, Jude his whole life, but Jude has always been a high-spirited child. He is always on. It is
a very, very needy infant.
That's right.
Very demanding young child.
Not mean.
Right.
But just, I need attention. I need help. All of these things, and he's very intense. And what I mean by that is, when Jude walks in a room, you know it. It's
and
not.
Everyone does.
Everyone does. He is loud.
He's full of life.
He's full of life, and I don't say any of this to demean him, or to that these are bad things. It's just, these are the things that we were noticing over the period of his 5 years, that were like, this is really intense, just how much attention he needs.
How much he requires on
Right.
a daily basis.
Right. And so that's kind of where everything started. We were really trying to figure out, okay, how do we meet all of his needs day to day? And then on top of that, we did have some behavior issues.
Right.
We had things like, at times, some strong pushing back on what we had asked him to do.
Difficult power struggles. That did not match the majority of his personality.
Right.
More in an outbursting sort of way.
Right. And some, it's not necessarily even I know better than you, or I just don't want to do that. It's more of almost like an impulsive argument.
A switch that cannot be flipped.
That's right.
Yeah. It's
That's
very
right.
much almost an automatic response to whatever the situation is.
Right. And so, especially early on, we did feel like this was an issue of bad parenting.
Right.
That we weren't consistent in our discipline, or that we weren't hard enough in our discipline.
Or that we didn't have the relationship with him that we felt like maybe he needed.
Right.
That we weren't pouring into him enough.
Right. And at times we thought, well, maybe we're doing it too much. We're too hard on him.
We've thought basically everything under the sun.
Sure.
That we've been too much or not enough.
So with all of that, we knew something's up. We don't know what it is, but something is wrong
Not
here.
right.
Yeah. And so then some of the other things that we started noticing were distractions. And
Severe distractions.
yes, hearing issues. When we tell him to do something, it would be, and not just a regular child, I forgot. It was a straight up, what did I just say? I don't know what you just said.
Right. We had his hearing checked.
Yeah, hearing
it
was
came
fine.
back perfect. We've had his eyes checked. The generic testing that you have done at your well visits and things like that, and everything was coming out perfectly. So then we really did rack our brain to think what stone have we not explored, not overturned. It's just it was a matter of mass confusion.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And he was obviously easily distracted with just go into your room and do such and such, and he will get in there and do everything but. And then you ask him, well, what did I say? I don't know what you said.
I don't remember.
I don't remember what you said. And again, if you truly know Jude, that's not him. That's not his. That's not where his heart is. He wants to do.
He wants to please.
Yeah, he wants to do what we're asking. Then on top of that is the impulsive behavior.
Right.
That we witnessed him throwing things just to throw them. And again, I qualify this to say not like just a regular child. We have a 1-year-old and she throws things.
Right.
But it's very intentional.
Yeah.
It's extremely...
It's playful.
It's playful. Whereas with Jude, it was, I'm excited, and this is going across the room. And it didn't matter what it was. It was a book or a pen or even something breakable.
Right. The throwing has been a huge source of frustration. And even after he's done this, he acts stunned that he's done something so inappropriate.
Right. And there was even a situation where Heather and I decided to go on a walk just in our neighborhood, and we had offered him to come, and he said, "No, I'm gonna stay here at the house with Grandma." And so we started off on our walk, and basically by the time we get back, Grandma's outside looking around and saying, "Where's Jude?" And eventually we find him. He had decided all of it on his own that he was going to go walk around the block. And we talked to him and we questioned him. And by the way, this isn't like a 2-year-old doing this that doesn't know better.
Right.
What was he, 4?
Yeah.
I
think it was almost 5.
Yeah. It was definitely much more recent. And we've talked to him time and time again about not going into the road. And he's just out there, and I decided to come on the walk with y'all.
He didn't at all think he had disobeyed us.
No, he didn't.
It was not a matter of defiance. It was not a matter of rebellion. It was just a thought, and he acted on it.
And so that's not an isolated situation. We have more situations like that just you see a trend going on all of this. And then finally there was also the fact that there are certain situations that set him off.
Right.
That there are certain places, certain events that he just gets emotional. Now, part of it is tiredness in some cases.
Sometimes.
When he's sleepy or hungry. But it is an obvious when he gets around a lot of people.
Overstimulated,
and he will that's when it's the worst in terms of, this is what I had in my mind of what we were going to do, and you have said something else, even though we've never determined that what I thought was going to happen is going to happen, and he just breaks down. He can't handle it. And a lot of times this happens around his grandmother, Heather's mom, that he's decided in his mind that he's going to go spend the day with his grandmother. We tell him that it's not in the plans for us to do that today, and he will just lose it. He will just break down, and it's obviously, it's not a controlled breakdown. It's not emotion. It's not a child just upset that they're not getting their way. It's definitely something that he is not able to control. And so that, combined with everything else, we knew we had something. And so based on the at least 2 years, if not all 5 years of his life, Heather did some research. Heather primarily, at least, did some research online for all of this stuff, and then she finally came across a post by Sally Clarkson that talks about some of the ADHD
that her son experienced, and her description and some of their battles, and it was something we had not explored, something we had not really looked into. I don't know what I thought ADHD was at that point, but I hadn't connected that with his behavior until then, and so we definitely started right away looking into what that could be, and as we researched those symptoms and the way that manifests itself, it was very obvious. It seemed initially that it was a textbook on Jude's situation in our home life day to day.
That's right. And so part of my recommendation, every child, every person is different, and how the ADHD manifests itself is different.
Right.
There are some similarities. Some of the things that we've mentioned with the inattentiveness and the hyperactivity, the impulsive nature, those are pretty consistent for all ADHD children. How that actually manifests itself can be very different. So I recommend you first start researching some of this online. Look it up. Figure out what is going on, what ADHD is, and what to look for. Your situation might be similar to ours, but it may not be as well. There are some other symptoms that you can look out for. And then if you do truly suspect that it is ADHD, I do recommend you talk to your doctor about it. And go in informed. Do not let the doctor bully you around to say, no, it's not ADHD, it's autism. And don't let them bully you into, I'll just write you a prescription for the ADHD.
Well, and along with just a doctor's visit, you can't really determine either one of those things.
That's exactly right.
You need to look under a fine microscope, and you need to find a great place to be evaluated, and a place maybe that, even like where we were at Vanderbilt, explores all behavioral therapies first before most any pharmaceutical choices.
That's right.
That are available so rampantly, and that's kind of one reason we were interested in going there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with all of that, that's how we've come to know Jude, and how we need to move forward in the months and years ahead of us. And even so far as we've come, we definitely have learned a lot, and we are already improving in ourselves, and Jude is as well, which is great.
And we are very thankful.
We're very thankful. And to a degree, I do think it's worth noting, ADHD is not something that just goes away. It is something that you can manage. It is something that the effects can be much diminished. But it is something that you will have to live with.
Not to say that some people don't have a phase that they grow out of it as the brain changes over time, but it's not a pill.
That's right.
And then you're cured.
That's right. So yeah, do your research. If you like our videos, subscribe. And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.